Coming into the NBA, Ben Simmons was one of the most hyped rookies we have ever seen. I know that feels like ages ago. He was even being compared to Magic Johnson and LeBron James for his 6'10 frame, being hyper-athletic and having elite playmaking abilities. Well, those comparisons definitely aged like milk. He already had red flags before he even played in the NBA, most notably no confidence in his jump shot, and this right here in his scouting report sure aged even better than fine wine. Simmons' lack of competitiveness in some crucial games has raised questions about his character as a basketball player. Those who know him best say he needs things to revolve around him on and off the court, and that he's often been close-minded to coaching or instruction. There's also this: Simmons has displayed an apathy for defense, contact, and delivering winning plays in crucial moments. Those troubling revelations in Simmons' game are cause for concern among decision makers on lottery teams with whom we've had contact. Well, the apathy for defense, at least Ben Simmons did become an elite defender, even a defensive player of the year candidate, but he definitely never became a winning player at the college or NBA level. So here we go now with the rise and fall of Ben Simmons, once a first overall pick who instantly helped Joel Embiid make the Sixers a force to be reckoned with for the first time in a very long time as soon as he stepped on the court, and now he's fallen out of the Brooklyn Nets rotation and may even be on his way out of the league due to being limited offensively, having a poor attitude and work ethic, and being mentally weak. He hasn't played since February 15th and was just ruled out for the season. Even when Ben Simmons looked like he was on his way to stardom, there were still red flags, which we will discuss throughout the video. We'll take it back to the very beginning first. Ben Simmons was born on July 20th, 1996 in Melbourne, Australia to an African-American father, Dave, who played professional basketball in Australia, and an Australian mother, Julie. Growing up, Ben Simmons was torn between basketball and Australian football, but eventually decided to stick with basketball and even represented Australia at the age of 15 in the 2012 FIBA Under-17 World Championship. By Ben Simmons' sophomore year in high school, he moved to Florida to play basketball with and against guys that are closer to his size and athleticism. He would end up becoming teammates with D'Angelo Russell at Maverick Academy. Ben Simmons earned playing time immediately on the varsity team as a sophomore, but his junior year was when he broke out, as he averaged 18.5 points, 9.8 rebounds, and 2.7 assists, while shooting 69% from the field, and even crazier, when seeing him in the NBA now, he shot 77% from the free throw line. Yes, you heard me correctly, he actually shot 77% from the free throw line as a junior in high school. He led his team to a 28-0 record, and in the last game of his junior year, he led Maverick Academy to a 71-62 win over Oak Hill with 24 points and 12 rebounds. By then, Ben Simmons was considered the top high school junior in the country. On November 12, 2014, Ben Simmons signed his letter of intent to play for LSU. As a senior, pretty hard to believe Ben Simmons would win an award like this now, right? He won the Morgan Wooten Award, given to the best male McDonald's All-American player who exemplifies outstanding character, exhibits leadership, and embodies the values of being a student athlete in the classroom and in the community. Yes, you heard those words correctly. Yes, I know, seeing how his NBA career is turning out, this is hard to believe, but he actually did win that award. Simmons averaged 28 points, 11.9 rebounds, 4 assists, and 2.6 steals per game as a senior, while shooting 70.7% from the field, and had 24 double-doubles in 29 games. After Ben Simmons led Maverick Academy to its third consecutive high school national tournament title with another win over Oak Hill and won the tournament's MVP award, he helped the world team beat Team USA at the 2015 Nike Hoop Summit. Now the hype was getting real, as ESPN considered Ben Simmons as a 5-star recruit and was listed as the #1 player in the nation. What could possibly go wrong at this point, right? Ben Simmons had a decent LSU debut with 11 points, 13 rebounds, and 5 assists in a win over McNeese State, but then had a stretch of some really good games, well, outside of just 4 points in a loss to North Carolina State, but he did have a 43-point game not too long after that. One red flag while Ben Simmons was at LSU, though, was the fact that he statistically regressed from the first half of his 1 year at LSU, as he put up 20 points, 12.9 rebounds, 5.1 assists, and actually shot 74% from the free throw line line in the first half, while all that dropped to 18.3 points, 10.5 rebounds, 4.4 assists, and 61% from the free throw line in the second half. Despite that though, the Sixers still took him with the number 1 overall pick in the 2016 draft. While they were trusting the process, Ben Simmons would miss his entire first season with a fractured 5th metatarsal bone in his right foot. That season, Joel Embiid made his long-awaited NBA debut after missing the first 2 seasons of his NBA career himself due to injury, as he would have been the consensus Rookie of the Year before his season-ending injury. The following season is when we'd see Joel Embiid and Ben Simmons take the floor together, so the Sixers' future was looking bright for the first time since the Allen Iverson era. After that season, the Sixers traded up to get the number 1 overall pick when they had the 3rd overall pick, and that turned out to be a disaster as they drafted Markelle Fultz and the Celtics took Jason Tatum with that 3rd overall pick that the Sixers would have had. We won't really focus too much on that though in this video. So moving on, the starting 5 going into the 2017-18 season was expected to be Markelle Fultz, JJ Redick, Robert Covington, Ben Simmons, and Joel Embiid. However, after Markelle Fultz got injured as the Sixers lottery picks just continued to be cursed, Ben Simmons would play point guard at 6'10", which led to those age-like milk comparisons to Magic Johnson. Ben Simmons proved to be a great all-around player as a guy who can handle the ball, go coast to coast in transition, has amazing court vision, and can finish at the rim. However, there was a big problem. Ben Simmons cannot shoot. He can't even throw the ball in the ocean. How he had a whole season to get any kind of a jump shot or even a resemblance of one and didn't should have been alarming in my opinion. I don't think a lack of a jump shot was his only problem though. He has no ability to post up either, and that's a weakness of his that I think has always been overlooked by him not having a jump shot in his repertoire. He also tends to be completely ineffective without the ball. With all those problems, he's only ever been any good when in transition. In the half-court offense, he's ineffective because of those weaknesses, and that's easily exploitable in the playoffs against better teams. Ben Simmons was also never able to get the mental aspect down, and that's something that you may not ever see on the stat sheet, but absolutely 100% matters a ton. The mentally weak part is something that I'll dive into later on though. In Ben Simmons' rookie year, in which he did show all-time great potential despite his limitations on offense, the Sixers went 52-30, giving them their first winning season since the 2011-12 season and their first 50-win season since their 2001 finals run. Ben Simmons was also named Rookie of the Year. Some have said Ben Simmons shouldn't have been eligible because he was drafted a year prior, even though he never played a single game until the year after he was drafted. Long story short though, Ben Simmons is far from the only Rookie of the Year to make his debut at least a year after he was drafted. What some may not remember is that Ben Simmons actually thrived in his playoff debut, putting up 17 points, 14 assists, and 9 rebounds. He also had 5 turnovers, but the Sixers won that game and series, so it's all good for now, although Ben Simmons also only had 2 games throughout the rest of the playoffs where he'd have less than 3 turnovers. The Sixers would end up losing to the Boston Celtics in the second round, but with the young duo of Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid, while also knowing Markelle Fultz still has his whole career ahead of him, the future does still look bright in Philly, doesn't it? Well, the fact that Ben Simmons only took 4 shots in 30 minutes in game 2 against the Celtics and had a problem with turning the ball over may have been yet another red flag, but Ben Simmons is still only 21 years old, so he should get better, right? Well, he actually didn't really on offense. The following season, the Sixers were going all in to win as they traded Dario Saric and Robert Covington for a disgruntled Jimmy Butler to make the Sixers go from a duo of Simmons and Embiid to a big 3 including Jimmy Butler. The Sixers would also acquire Tobias Harris, who was averaging a little over 20 points per game for the Clippers at the time, for absolutely nothing, so the Clippers can free up space for Kawhi Leonard and Paul George in the following offseason. Now with Ben Simmons, Jimmy Butler, Tobias Harris, and Joel Embiid, the Sixers are definitely all in to win, although before all that they did make a very dumb trade by trading a local guy out of Villanova, Mikal Bridges, after they drafted him, and he could have been the perfect 3-and-D piece to play alongside Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid for Zaire Smith, who's not even in the league anymore, and a 2021 first round pick they traded anyways. This was the year Ben Simmons made his first All-Star game though, as his numbers from the previous year did slightly improve. However, his offensive game still had the same limitations from his rookie season. Despite the Sixers' efforts to build a championship team, they ended up winning one less regular season game and would get bounced in the second round on this miraculous buzzer-beating shot by Kawhi Leonard. The future is still bright though, right? Since Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid are still very young, well, this series showed yet another sign of things to come, another red flag, as Ben Simmons only scored 11.6 points per game in those 7 games, and so what if he was efficient? He lost, and him not being aggressive enough certainly hurt his team. He was especially horrible in the fourth quarter, scoring a total of just 8 fourth quarter points in 7 games, and didn't even play the fourth quarter of Game 5, in which the Raptors smoked the Sixers 125-89. For Ben Simmons to still not ever develop any kind of jump shot when the whole world knew this would be his key to taking the next step in his game is inexcusable. That, and also a post game, even if that's becoming somewhat of a lost art in the modern game, with a few exceptions. And if he wasn't ball watching as much as he does without the ball, that would definitely help too. Everyone who's watched basketball should know that in the playoffs, the game slows down, which makes it more necessary to have some resemblance of a half-court game. No one said that Ben Simmons needs to be like Steph Curry, just at least develop a mid-range shot so you're not so predictable, or at least develop some kind of confidence. Confidence is essential in any aspect of life, not just sports, and Ben Simmons never being confident enough to be more aggressive in big spots has really been detrimental for him. Jimmy Butler even said it to the media that he wants Ben Simmons to be more aggressive, but going back to the scouting report that I mentioned at the beginning of this video, Simmons' lack of competitiveness in some crucial games has raised questions about his character as a basketball player. Those who know him best say he needs things to revolve around him on and off the court, and that he's often been close-minded to coaching or instruction. Yeah, I know I've said this before, I'll say it again. I would say Kobe was right that Ben Simmons will regret it if he never develops a jump shot, and if he doesn't lock himself in a gym for 10 hours a day.
Question, how far can Ben Simmons go?
Well, he's got to get a jump shot. It's like, it sounds humorous and all that, but I'm dead ass serious.
Yeah.
You can't, because if not, he'll regret it. When his career is over, and you look at what he's doing now without that is astonishing. Now imagine you can shoot the ball. What does that open up for you? You don't want to retire. No, seriously, you don't want to retire and look back and go, man, if I just had a jump shot, what would I have done? You don't want that. You don't want that. So I don't care if you have to lock yourself in the gym 10 hours a day. If this kid gets a jump shot, it's a serious, serious problem. A serious, serious problem. To answer your question, the sky's the limit for him. He can be as good as he wants to be.
Gotta set the alarm for 3:30.
You better set it for 1.
Problem to me though, Ben Simmons doesn't seem to care, and his rookie season would be when he averaged his most shot attempts for his career. He did score more in his second and third year, but still, less shot attempts than his rookie season. Even if he's a pass first player, he should have listened to Kobe. How do you not even listen to Kobe Bryant of all people? Moving on though, the following off season, the Sixers front office made some very questionable moves, like bringing in Al Horford as insurance for Joel Embiid's health and as a power forward, despite Horford being best suited as a center in the modern NBA. Re-signing Tobias Harris to a 5-year max deal out of desperation to have him play small forward despite him being best suited as a stretch 4 today, and acquired Josh Richardson in a 4-team trade that sent Jimmy Butler to the Miami Heat in a sign-and trade after Jimmy Butler wasn't offered the max contract. Really, you don't offer Jimmy Butler the max contract, and I agree he's not quite good enough to be the best player in a championship team, but then give that to Tobias Harris and give Al Horford a multi-year deal instead? It makes no sense, right? For a guy who can't shoot or post up as your starting point guard, and Joel Embiid not being a great 3-point shooter either as your starting center, you want shooters around those guys, right? The Sixers were actually 9th in 3-point percentage, but 18th in attempts. Most of their best shooters were not starters though, and the Sixers did take a step back, going from the 3rd seed to the 6th 6th seed. Ben Simmons still has himself to blame though for still not improving himself on offense and being so unwilling to shoot the ball that LeBron would even give him this much space. I want to put some blame on Brett Brown too for not enforcing what he said, that he'll bench Ben Simmons if he doesn't take a 3 per game. In Brett Brown's defense though, the Sixers didn't have a better option to start at point guard. Maybe one game could be a way to send the message, but then you know how Ben Simmons is when it comes to taking instruction and criticism and needing things to revolve around him. I think by this point you had to trade him if you want to win a championship now. I know this is a tough situation, but you need to do what's best for the team, not what's best for an individual. Ben Simmons was injured during the playoffs as the Celtics swept the Sixers out of the first round despite Joel Embiid averaging 30 points and 12 points, 3 rebounds per game. So yeah, even though Ben Simmons has his limitations, the Sixers still needed his elite defense to at least not get swept. This was one of 2 seasons which Ben Simmons made the all-defensive first team. As limited as he always has been on offense, we shouldn't forget there was a time when Ben Simmons' defense was absolutely elite. I still think the Sixers should have looked to trade Ben Simmons and pair up Joel Embiid with a different co-star earlier. Problem in the 2020 playoffs was that there was no co-star, as both Tobias Harris and Al Horford were still a bad fit for Joel Embiid even without Ben Simmons. After the 2019-20 season, the Sixers decided to fire Brett Brown and went with perennial second round choker Glenn Rivers and brought in Daryl Morey to be their new GM. Glenn Rivers is an upgrade from Brett Brown, but that's not saying much. Brett Brown won as much as he did because of the talent on his team, but he never really did get the most out of what he had. The Sixers also signed Danny Green and traded Josh Richardson for Seth Curry to give Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid the shooters that they needed while moving Tobias Harris to power forward where he's best suited for today's NBA. As for Daryl Morey, he's definitely not a GM you want building a championship team. However, for him to get rid of Al Horford's contract, which seemed like it was impossible to do at the time given his value just plummeted, I do have to give Daryl Morey some credit there. Ben Simmons also just signed a 5-year deal worth $35 million a year that off season, and oh, that contract would end up becoming one of the worst contracts in sports history pretty soon. The Sixers would go on to have the best record in the Eastern Conference, while Simmons would become the 3rd player in NBA history to average at least 15 points, 7 rebounds, and 7 assists in his first 4 seasons, the first 2 being Oscar Robertson and Magic Johnson. However, here is where the downfall begins. Well, before the playoffs though, Ben Simmons did already show a lack of aggression by not even attempting 10 field goals per game in the last 22 games, so once again, another red flag. Although the Sixers had no problem beating the 8th seeded Washington Wizards in 5 games, the 5th seeded Atlanta Hawks would upset the Sixers while Ben Simmons couldn't even average 10 points per game and shot a whopping 33% from the free throw line. In the deciding game, he only took 4 shots all game. Yes, only 4 shots. Not only that, 0 fourth quarter shots in the last 4 games of the series and 3 in the first 3 games of the series. I get being a pass first player, but with the season on the line, that lack of aggression, especially in this instance where he passed up a dunk to a guy who'd go on to make 1 out of 2 free throws, that's pitiful. He deserved all the boost for that. Although for Glenn Rivers to not even have Ben Simmons back when a reporter asked him if he thinks Ben Simmons can be the starting point guard of a championship team.
Hey, Doc, you think Ben Simmons can still be a point guard for a championship team like the one you guys want to become?
Yeah, David, I don't know that question or the answer to that right now. So I don't know the answer to that.
What do you, when you say get in the gym with him, what needs to be done? I mean, obviously, this is fresh.
Yeah, I mean, that's between Ben and I.
That was terrible of him, so Glenn Rivers definitely didn't handle that well either. That absolutely shook Ben Simmons' confidence even more. Glenn Rivers may have been right that Ben Simmons can't be the starting point guard of a championship team, but you still have to say something like, he's our guy, and until the day he puts on another uniform, if that day ever comes, I'm going to have his back. Even take some responsibility yourself, even if Ben Simmons does deserve the blame for still not developing a jump shot and passing up a dunk so his teammate can miss a free throw instead of him. It also does tell me that Ben Simmons should be a lot better at holding himself accountable though, and for him to not be able to, it's selfish. Philly sports fans who probably are watching this, you saw how Jalen Hurts handled losing the Super Bowl at the podium.
I think the beautiful part about it is everyone experiences different pains, everyone experiences different agonies of life, but you decide if you want to learn from it. You decide if you want to use that to be a teachable moment, and I know what I'll do. So.
Okay, thanks everyone.
Thank you.
He absolutely earned my respect for handling that in the most professional way possible, even though he only really made one bad play and the defense was more at fault than he was. Winners hold themselves accountable, and Ben Simmons not doing that is what's made him a loser. Even as critical as I was of LeBron in my video about why he isn't the GOAT, some of the LeBron haters actually thought I'm being too nice, which is not something I hear a lot of. At least LeBron did develop a more reliable jump shot as the years passed, and him not being able to shoot was a weakness of his in the early part of his career. He even developed a turnaround fadeaway during his second stint in Cleveland, which sure would have made him a lot more deadly if that was in his arsenal in his 20s. We've seen guys like Kevin Love, Brook Lopez, and Channing Frye, who entered the league as traditional big men, develop a three ball later on in their careers. Lonzo Ball, whose jump shot was a disaster in the early part of his career, developed into a sharpshooter. For Ben Simmons to not even develop any resemblance of a jump shot, I'm not saying he needed to be Stephen Curry or Ray Allen, but to not even have any resemblance of a jump shot tells me his work ethic is terrible. Even while Giannis may have had an unreliable jump shot throughout his career, at least he never lacked aggression and has at least had the confidence to take some threes even though he doesn't make very many of them. You can go back to earlier videos I made. I very much believe Ben Simmons should have won Defensive Player of the Year over Rudy Gobert in 2021 because Simmons was a lot more versatile and I trusted him to clamp the other team's best player. However, for him to pass up a dunk because he's afraid of missing his free throw only for his teammate to miss a crucial free throw instead was weak, and yes, I'll even go as far as saying selfish because he decided to set his teammate up for failure instead of taking matters into his own hands as an all-star level talent on his team. Now, Ben Simmons did end up saying that he was dealing with some mental health issues after this series, and I most certainly do not want to come off as insensitive about mental health. It is a very serious issue, and I don't want to be the guy who questions if Ben Simmons is telling the truth. However, as said earlier in the video, there is a mental aspect in every sport. You have to be resilient to be among the best. Confidence is key in many aspects of life, and most certainly does matter a lot in sports. Ben Simmons never got that down. I understand being hated by your own fans isn't easy. However, you need thick skin in any profession. Hey, people insult me on here. Does it bother me? No, I signed up to have trolls attack me by ever being on YouTube in the first place. You know, some of the all-time greats have even been booed in their own arena, right? Believe it or not, Kobe's been booed by Laker fans before. I know it's crazy to believe now because of how beloved he is around the world, not just in LA, and how influential he is, but it wasn't always like that for him. Patrick Ewing's even been booed in Madison Square Garden before, believe it or not. In this case though, yes, I have addressed this before that Glenn Rivers and Joel Embiid were wrong for not having Ben Simmons back, but Ben Simmons isn't any more right. In Joel Embiid's defense, I think Ben Simmons was being incredibly selfish with the way he handled the situation. To start the 2021-22 season, for Ben Simmons to hold out, be uninterested in trying to help the team, his teammates having to go find him because they couldn't reach him, regardless of who's right and who's wrong, and in this case nobody was right, you're part of a team, you have to be able to figure it out. Even Shaq and Kobe, with all their problems they had together, did figure it out until 2004, but they had great success together despite their differences, not just because of their amazing skill sets and because of Phil Jackson, but also they had it mentally to be able to three-peat. Ben Simmons, as I said before, is mentally weak. That choke job against the Hawks would be the last time that Ben Simmons ever played for the Philadelphia 76ers, as he refused to ever play for them again. Hell, he even got kicked out of a practice for refusing to participate in team drills and for being a distraction. Joel Embiid even had this to say because Ben Simmons was so detrimental to the team. So yeah, you should have traded Ben Simmons while he still had trade value, but that sunk after the playoffs, so it was pretty hard to pair up Embiid with another star. At the trade deadline though, Ben Simmons did get his wish and was traded to the Brooklyn Nets for James Harden in a deal that included multiple other players, and I thought if Ben Simmons can get his mind right, this could be a great situation for him with Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving that he can pass the ball to and be the defensive stopper that the Nets desperately needed. He called it scary hours, which we know by now that aged like milk. He didn't even suit up for the Nets until the following season because of an apparent back injury no one even knows the cause of, and from there on out, he's been a shell of himself. He can't even have the same defensive impact he used to have when initially there was the thought that he could have a similar role to Draymond Green's role with the Warriors as a point forward and a versatile defender. He definitely can never be the vocal leader that Draymond has been since 2015 though. From November 17th to 25th in the 2022 to 23 season, Ben Simmons started to look like the guy we knew in his first 4 seasons again with these stats, but then he fell off again. Now, while not even having the same defensive impact, KD and Kyrie were even seen not helping him up when early on they actually had his back when talking to the media when Simmons was really struggling at first. As we know, KD and Kyrie would request to get traded, and their body language on the court made it very evident that they are not happy with Ben Simmons' lack of effort. Simmons ended up not only losing his starting job, but ended up out of the Nets rotation, all while making $35 million this year, over $37 million next year, and over $40 million in the 2024 to 25 season. Now he's out for the season after not having played at all since February 15th because of his back. Is this the worst contract the NBA has ever seen? It's definitely got to be up there, right? So to sum it all up, Ben Simmons is one of the biggest wasted talents the game has ever seen. Him not even taking jump shots is the main thing, but also no post game or any resemblance of a half-court offense, lacking confidence, having extremely thin skin, having poor work ethic, and having a selfish attitude has all led to his demise. What's crazy is when Ben Simmons and Markelle Fultz were on the Sixers together, Markelle Fultz was the draft bust, but now he's still not an all-star, but is putting up career highs across the board, while Ben Simmons is the guy who's completely fallen off. It sure would be a nice redemption story if Ben Simmons could ever return to what he was in his first 4 seasons, but with a jump shot post game and to be able to play off the ball more. He'll need to work a lot harder though if he wants to redeem himself. So that'll be where I end this video. If you enjoyed this video, a like would definitely be appreciated, and if you'd like to consider subscribing and turning on notifications so you never miss another video, welcome to the team. Links to my social media are in the description. If you're still here, which I will say is impressive for the long video this is, comment Brick City so I know you watched it until the end. If only the Nets still played in New Jersey. Or if you want to be more serious, if there are any rise and fall videos you want to see me make, please let me know in the comments and I'll try to get to work on that as soon as possible. Here are 2 previous rise and fall videos that I made. Well, Odell Beckham Jr. had a sequel though, his redemption, which is at the end screen of his rise and fall video. If you want to check out those videos too, you're more than welcome to. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you next time. Peace.